Hello and welcome to today's edition of Route 664, The Road to Human Kindness. I'm Les Winston and I'm the host. I'm also the national spokesperson and the chairman of the Endow America Network Foundation, which is a foundation that is absolutely committed to endowing America. Endowing America is very important. We need to build the charitable sector in the country and make that the efficient way for us to do community services and fully fund it so it's sustainable without having to be paid for by tax dollars. The reason why you get a tax deduction for making a charitable contribution is because it's a social benefit. And that social benefit is very important for us today in order to be able to reduce the size of government and reduce the size of our national debt. That's one of the objectives that we have with regard to endowing America. And we also want to make life easier for everybody. Now, it takes a while to do some of this stuff. A lot of people don't know how to do it, what to do it with, who to consult with. There are very important people in this industry who have had the time to commit themselves to getting a designation, which is called a Chartered Advisor in Philanthropy designation. And that Chartered Advisor in Philanthropy designation indicates that they have the knowledge to do charitable financial planning using charitable devices. My guest today is a Chartered Advisor in Philanthropy. Simon Singer joins us now, and he has been a Chartered Advisor in Philanthropy for quite a while. When did you get your designation?
I'm awfully old, Les. You're going to ask me to try to remember. I'm guessing probably about 5 years ago is my guess.
Okay.
But I've been doing philanthropy as a part of estate and tax planning for probably 40 years. But it
Great.
was because this designation is fairly new, as I'm sure you're aware.
Yes, and the reason why I talk about it is that it is new, and people need to know that it's available. That people out there have this designation that can help you, and I encourage more people to become familiar with the Chartered Advisor in Philanthropy designation and to get the designation because we're going to need more people out there to build the charitable wealth. So you are also the founder of the Center of Financial Tax Strategies, Center for
That's
Tax Strategies.
I'm the founder. Yep. And fortunately, I surround myself with people that are a lot smarter than I am.
Okay, good. Yeah, collaboration with more minds gives you a lot more
Collaboration with
insight.
tax attorneys, CPAs, very high level financial planners, a few charter advisors in philanthropy. You were mentioning before about why you get a tax deduction. We like to tell people that there's two ways to deal with the tax code, either on a voluntary basis or an involuntary basis.
Mhm.
Involuntary is taxes, voluntary is philanthropy, because a certain portion of your accumulated wealth and your earned wealth is going to support the social welfare of this country. You can either do it on a voluntary basis or an involuntary basis. If you do
And
it
that and
voluntarily,
that's becoming more important today.
well, interesting enough, the tax attorneys mostly and a few of the CPAs as well finally understand that if true wealth can be defined as to what you own and what you control, by being philanthropic on a voluntary basis, you'll actually do better for yourself, your family, and your community.
Because you control more wealth because you haven't given away any part of it in taxes.
Because you haven't paid the taxes, and you get to do a little direction as opposed to having the government spend $400 for toilet seats.
Something you wouldn't choose normally.
No, probably wouldn't.
Yeah. So, do you mind if I call you Stuffy?
I don't mind at all. It's a
Okay.
term of endearment since the day I
Yeah,
was born.
yeah, and it kind of I am sure it takes you back in time to your youth. Do you think
It
that
very much is.
you were destined to do this kind of work?
Um, and certainly not at the time that I started doing it in 1966, but it has evolved to the point where I think so, but I was unaware, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, it makes sense, very much sense to me. We've coined a phrase, social charity, which was something that came about at a meeting of Chartered Advisor in Philanthropy, or at that time was NARA, I think. I don't know if you're familiar with any of that.
None.
that era of how everybody kind of got into the charitable planning business through Renaissance. Renaissance used to have these sessions on a regular basis where they were teaching advisors how to use the parts of the tax code that most people are not familiar with.
Renaissance was mostly CRTs, wasn't it?
Yes, yes.
That's what
Do
I
you
thought.
do mostly charity? Do you do mostly charitable remainder trusts, or do you do other devices?
We do some foundational work. We do some CRTs. We do some CLTs, depending on the situation. And then what we combine them with can create an exponential result for everybody. Sometimes they're combinable, sometimes they're not. But part of the problem is the public's perception of the terminology. So if somebody says charitable remainder trust or charitable lead trust, a lot of people hear the word charity and we get the following. I've already given, I've given enough, charity begins at home, et cetera, et cetera. If I phrase it a little bit differently and start asking questions, such as, did you know that capital gains tax is voluntary? Did you know that estate taxes are voluntary? Did you know that if you voluntarily opted out of both capital gains tax and estate tax, the government will actually give you a current income tax deduction just for opting out of those other two taxes? Were you aware of that? And they'll say, no, I wasn't aware of it. And I'll say, wait, I'm not done yet, because if we set up this series of, I know it is amusing when you know where I'm going, but I could share with you some situations where a tax attorney is sitting there telling a client, you've been to a dozen seminars on this. Guy says, I don't know what you're talking about. So I say, well, I'm not done. Because if I set up this series of buckets as opposed to trusts, because trusts tend to intimidate people.
Right.
If you set up the series of buckets correctly, you're going to be able to invest and reinvest completely at you and your family's discretion in perpetuity, and you'll never pay taxes on the gains again. You'll be able to draw out as little or as much income as you would like. You will pay taxes on the income that you draw out, but all the rest of the money is eventually going to go to people or institutions whose value systems you support, and you can do it all without disinheriting your children. Were you aware of that? And the answer is almost no, almost always no. And all I did was combine a charitable remainder trust, a net income would make up charitable remainder unit trust, a family foundation, a life insurance policy, and an irrevocable trust. But every one of those pieces have negative connotation to them. Life insurance means I have to die to win. Irrevocable means I can't change my mind. And so what I want people to do is I want them to say, I like that. How does it work? Before I have them close down because of using words that they have a misunderstanding of. Does that make sense?
Yes, I think and also it's not just them. It's also their advisors in a lot of instances where you've actually explained the process, and then they go to their advisor and they tell their advisor that's what they would like, and their advisor says, no, you're giving away your property. Don't tell you.
Yeah, or what are you going to do with the kids? Or you can't change your mind, or you got to have a real charitable intent. When people understand, especially wealthy people, when they understand that 93 or 94 cents of every dollar that goes into one of these structures would have been spent in tax of all types: capital gains, ordinary income, gift, and estate tax. All of a sudden, it's not such a painful deal. And if they really want to perpetuate values that are important to them, properly structured with the correct type of advice and counsel, can accomplish a lot of good.
How do they feel about helping others?
It depends on the person, and it depends on their willingness to be candid. Some will admit it, some will go overboard, and some will say, I'm really more concerned with taking care of myself and my family. It kind of varies, but everybody deep down has something that they would like to be able to contribute, as long as it doesn't invade their lifestyle. And if done correctly,
you're actually paying, aren't you paying them to help others in a way?
Absolutely, but that requires sometimes a little bit of education and communication.
And that's what we obviously the Endow American Network Foundation is something that is a communication device. We're trying to communicate the idea to people that charitable planning or using charitable devices or creating social charity devices, as we call them, is a very valuable thing for them on their own, as well as what they'll be able to do for the community later on. So, in your circle of advisors, is it expanding, or are you having? Do you find that there are more advisors more open now to being collaborative on this, or is it all dependent on your being able to direct your client to tell them? I mean, what I find in a lot of cases, if I tell the client what has to be done, and we need an attorney to do it, and we need a CPA to do certain things, it's sometimes better than trying to get it through the advisor.
Yeah, so I handle that a little bit differently than that. I try not to make any recommendations to the client because sometimes professional advisors feel that I'm stepping on their toes and perhaps participating in the unauthorized practice of law, despite the fact that I'm not. But that's in the eye of the beholder. So sometimes I'll gather the facts and circumstances, goals and objectives, and say, I think there's some ways to help you do a lot of the things that you're trying to accomplish with the blessing of the federal and state government. But I think it's time that you gave me an authorization to go talk to your professional advisor. Then take what I have found to the professional advisor, share with him what the objectives were, ask them what they would do, and then throw out my recommendations as alternatives and see how they feel. There's a lot of ego involved, and not just for the professional side, but for our side as well. But I've found that I make much better headway if I involve them in the process, as opposed to going to them and saying, here, draft a document.
I guess the Simon Singer, a chartered advisor in philanthropy, located in California, right?
That's correct.
And we're going to take a break. We'll be right back with Simon Singer. We'll talk some more about chartered advisor in philanthropy designation, as well as why it is so beneficial for you to consider doing this kind of planning for yourself, because it's so valuable and you need to know about it. We'll be right back.
Hey folks, it's Charity here. 664 equals endowment squared. That means income for you, benefits for all. It's a way to help make the world a better place. Peace through prosperity, prosperity through peace. Join us at socialsecharity.org. You ever just want to tune out the world and relax? Then you've come to the right place. At Route664.org, we've got great music that will keep you entertained for hours and uplifting conversation that will make you feel good about yourself and the world. So come on in and take a load off. We won't judge here. Route664.org.
Do you suffer from high cholesterol, headaches, anxiety, depression, sleep disorders, hormone imbalances, ADHD, or any other condition that's disrupting your quality of life? With the Body Chem program, you can feel better than you have in years. We'll test you for nutritional and chemical imbalances and design a specific dietary plan for your individual needs. Everything we do is natural, and you won't be subjected to invasive procedures and harsh pharmaceuticals. When you're healthy, you're happy. Why wait? Call today.
We've got best-selling authors.
You are going to start to uncover all the layers that are covering your genius.
And some of the world's top leadership experts.
We have structured a mastermind program that is very unusual, and it is very powerful.
Robin Sharma at noon.
Your creativity will soar, your productivity will be epic, your impact will be legendary, you will be the best in the business, and you will not only achieve remarkable things, but you're going to feel sunsets. You'll feel a connection to people. You'll feel for what's going on in the world, and that will make you a world changer in your own unique way.
Robin Sharma at noon at 4 p.m.
It's a
Blaine Bartlett.
exploration of what it takes to be a highly effective leader in today's fast-changing environment.
Best-selling author, executive and leadership coach.
And if you've been liking what you've been listening to on the Soul of Business podcasts, how does one become a leader that can keep connection to the soul of business?
Blaine Bartlett at 4 p.m.
Look forward to seeing you there.
At Route664.org. This is Route 664 Radio.
And we're back. and my guest is Simon Singer. He is a chartered advisor in philanthropy in California, and has the Center for Tax Strategies. I'm having trouble seeing the whole thing on my teleprompter. Is that correct? Center for Tax Strategies?
Actually, it's Center for Tax Strategies and Resources, with the main operative word being resources. The reason I say that is everybody's got the same tax laws. Everybody's got the same strategies. Sometimes how you time, combine, and sequence in those, you can produce an exponential result, but that usually requires the benefit of bringing legal counsel and accounting counsel into play, whether it be their own or whether it be people that we have existing relationships with. But if I don't have a professional advisor at my shoulder, I have a much more difficult swim up that stream than if I do.
That's great advice. And that's to be taken very literally, because you need to have the guidance. So the Chartered Advisor in Philanthropy designation is a relatively new designation. It's a designation given by the American College, which is one of the premier financial learning institutions in the country, and has been around since 2004, I believe, was the first class for the Chartered Advisors in Philanthropy. And there's about 2,200 around the country. Do you list that first on your card, or do you list other things first?
To think about that. I think I probably list CFP first, because that was the order of things. And I list Charitable Advisor and Philanthropy second. I think that's what it is. Handing out cards, we don't do as much anymore as we used to.
Well, we don't see people that much anymore in person.
That's true.
Yeah. And actually, everything we do now, we had a really interesting conversation last week with a gentleman who is very knowledgeable in Gen Z. Gen Z is born 1995, I think, to 2018. That age, currently they're turning, I guess, what is it, 18 years, 18, no, they're 28 years old now, would be the oldest. They've been dealing with the technology for a long time. And I guess you and I, we're like old school, kind of learning the new technology. But is that technology making it easier now to explain what we do?
I don't think so.
Explain the process at all?
Yeah, I don't think so. It's usually designed, the ones that I've seen have been designed to crunch numbers, like Number Cruncher, for example.
Right.
That's not really illustrative software. It crunches numbers, is what it does. So it's nice to have that, but it's also nice still to be able to draw circles and squares and get people more familiar with a static presentation that's already done before they get there.
Right.
Just kind of take them a step along.
Okay.
And even when I do presentations that are pre-prepared, I typically have those animated so I can control what they're looking at, as opposed to seeing a bunch of squares, circles, and rectangles on a page and getting lost in the minutia.
Well, that's very interesting. And one of the things we hope that you're going to be listed on our network. The way we have a network of advisors, network of professional philanthropic advisors. The listing is free, and the purpose of it is to allow the public to get to know people in this vein, that people who have the skill sets to be able to do this kind of planning, to be their guides, and make it easy for them to do what we're talking about. Because Endowing America, our philosophy is that you can endow America if you create enough charitable wealth. And we're not creating enough charitable wealth because enough people don't know about what we can do or how to do it and what to do it with. When you explain to folks that they can use non-cash assets, what's that all about?
It depends on the emotional attachment that they've got to an asset. So as you know, sometimes families inherit for generations. And, this was my great-grandfather's asset, and I'm not really sure I want to. But when they grasp the concept that they're going to lose perhaps half of it, including state estate tax as well, where it's not going to be going voluntarily to people or institutions that they wanted to, they tend to soften a while. But It kind of depends. It kind of depends. But of course, appreciated assets give you the advantage of 4 tax savings, not just 1 or 2.
Right. You can eliminate that. So the I mean, the value proposition is there. The public's knowledge of it is not. But people know what a 401k is, right?
They do. Isn't that interesting? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So
which is really a deferral.
yeah. And it's a tax code. So one of the things we're trying to do with our programming is we're trying to get 664 into the current lingo. The people need to understand that 664 is a good number for them, just like a 401k is.
Well, the 401k has been marketed so well that we run into employees of the owner, shareholder, employee who are putting money away in a 401k who aren't paying any taxes. So I get to put money into a 401k, I get some tax deferred growth, but when I take it out, whether I'm alive or I'm dead and my family takes it out, they're going to pay tax on money I didn't get any tax breaks on. It doesn't make any sense.
Right. And that's part of this is it's a patterning, unfortunately, that's coming from a lack of I guess true financial literacy with regard to some of these things. What is your objective with your coursework? The webinars that you're doing?
Well, we do webinars. We also do quarterly meetings. We're getting, I believe, next week, we do a quarterly meeting in San Diego. And the objective is to expose people to people and strategies and concept and language to be able to better serve their community and serve themselves. So it could be an attorney talking about business succession. It could be a CPA talking about the tax implications of succession, or the tax implications on money in and money out on a qualified plan of any type. It could be estate planning. It could be a combination of all of them.
So it's like advanced financial literacy.
I think that would be correct, except it's not financial literacy to the public. It's financial literacy to the people that serve the public.
To the advisors.
Yes.
So that means that there's somewhere along the line, there's a desert of information out there with regard to this in the training of other advisors.
I believe that's correct.
So how does that change?
Well, it appears to be changing from advisor to advisor. I found out about it from a friend of mine who became a CAP the year before I did. Somebody who's actually older than I am, which is a nice thing. His name was Joel Koenig on the East Coast.
Yeah.
Age
is not a factor, Stuffy.
It's a factor until there's no more age.
Yeah, well, that's a different story. But I mean, today there are actually more people working at age 80 than are retired at age 80. It's they talk about age with regard to a lot of things, especially in the political world right now. They're talking about age, but I don't think it's the age. It's the person, how they're dealing with their age. And I think more than anything, age doesn't kill you, it's lifestyle. So you can look at your lifestyle and make your age, your longevity can be significant. And if that's the case, what we're doing is really more important. Because our method of creating income is a lot longer. When you're creating a charitable, well, you used some letters before, a NIMCRUT, I believe you said.
Yeah, net income with makeup charitable remainder unit trust.
That's a mouthful. Yeah. So
it took me a while to learn how to do that.
Yeah, exactly. So give me an idea what that does. What are the benefits of a net income with a makeup provision charitable remainder unit trust?
Again, I can contribute appreciated assets. And if it doesn't generate any income, the income can be accumulated and distributed at a later time. So if somebody thinks they have an asset that's going to explode one day, They might want to make the contribution today and let the explosion take place a few years later where there's no long-term capital gains tax, but they still got the elimination of both long-term capital gains and ordinary income and estate tax because their family is not going to receive that asset.
And what's the makeup provision?
And it is a makeup provision.
And the makeup provision says that if they haven't taken it, they can take it in the future when there is an explosion.
That's correct.
So they get the full benefit. Okay. So the devices are easy. They're easy to use actually when you know how to use them.
They are easy to use however, kind of like doctors, everybody thinks their attorney is the best.
Mhm.
And there is a lot of sophistication involved in the structuring of these things. I don't purport to be an expert. I wouldn't want to draft documents, but I can tell when I'm dealing with a professional advisor that has a lot of experience as to the twists and turns that can make a significant difference.
So as I've seen in some cases, there are trusts drawn. I had a radio show for many years and people would listen to the radio show. It was Funny Money. And they would end up learning about a charitable remainder trust and they would go to their advisor and get a charitable remainder trust. And that happened in one situation. And when I went to see, when they called me finally, I said, we did what you did, but it's not working out right. And I said, why is that? Well, they had put tax-free. They were told that they would have tax-free income from a tax-free contribution, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, it was a charitable remainder trust, but it was a problem. And there are some charitable remainder trusts that are drawn properly that are not problems, but they're not as good as they could be.
Correct. No, that's absolutely correct. They picked the wrong asset or the wrong time period or the wrong ages of people to be income beneficiaries. But that gets down to interviewing and discovery, because if attorneys have been taught not to ask questions that don't appear to be relevant. Doctors, on the other hand, ask all kinds of questions, whether they're relevant or not. And sometimes the irrelevant becomes relevant, depending on what the understanding is of the people.
Yeah. I tell people that it takes a long time for me to get to know you well enough to be able to do your work.
It's true.
And that I think that's the case. And I think that when we explain what we're doing to the public and the public can see the value of this, I think that it'll become more widespread and more easily done. So we want to spread the word about 664. It's a really important part of this concept, that we want that number to be known, because that is a section of the tax code that allows this to be done. And there are other sections of the tax code with similar quality, like the pooled income funds and the charitable gift annuities. Those are also devices that are part of the social charity network, social charity properties, so to speak.
Understood.
Well, I really appreciate your time today, Simon. Stuffy Singer, my guest from California, a chartered advisor in philanthropy, CFP first, in the sense that you've done that designation first. But I think in your heart, do you feel that the chartered advisor in philanthropy designation is your calling?
I think they blend together, and use them separately, use them together, but there's a lot of appropriateness out there that needs to be dealt with, as opposed to pushing a product.
Say again?
As opposed to just pushing a product.
Yeah. Ours is an income producing benefit that needs to be done with the thought of having a way to help others. So
I would agree.
Yeah.
I would agree.
Great. Thank you for your time today.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, you bet.
We know we can help. Thank you.
We'll be with you again next week. Take care.
Hey folks, it's Charity here. 664 equals endowment squared. That means income for you, benefits for all. It's a way to help make the world a better place. Peace through prosperity, prosperity through peace. Join us at socialsecurity.org.